My life has been almost like the Forrest Gump of the bodybuilding world. Yeah, it was pretty big, but I mean, I don't think I could ever be that again. It's just not healthy. But to do that, to get there, I had to train so hard, eat so much, and take so much drugs that I don't think that I'd be able to do it. Like mentally, I don't even think I'd be able to do it anymore.
You also have a great video on DMT, strongest psychedelic basically there is.
The DMT more was about spiritually because I learned that something else was out there besides the physique. As Rich passed and I started slimming down, you're looking in the mirror, you're still seeing your face and your head, but your body's doing this, and it no longer looks like you. So now you start going, well, without bodybuilding, what am I? Who am I without bodybuilding? You start understanding there's more to life than just what your physique, how big you can be.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of MC Stories podcast by Mario Sarkon. And this episode is really special because I have a big guest. It's one and only Jerry Ward. He is a successful businessman, bodybuilder. He was a wrestler, and he does all kinds of stuff which you'll figure out in his podcast. And you can listen on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, Podcast Addict, Pocket Casts, Breaker, and Radio Public. And right now I'm gonna let the space to Jerry. So Jerry, can you introduce yourself to all the listeners?
Awesome. Then Mario, thank you very much, first of all, for having me on. I just want to say hello to all your following fans and thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Yeah, man. I mean, my life has been almost like the Forrest Gump of the bodybuilding world. There's so many crazy things and avenues that I've gone down. Um, to start, I guess, I mean, you can start where I grew up. And I grew up in Warren, Rhode Island, which is one of the smallest towns in the smallest state in America. I mean, if you look at Rhode Island on the map, you can barely see it. And that's where I was born. And usually that area, what happens is like people grow up and they buy houses near their parents and they kind of live near their parents and their parents pass away and then they move into that house. I say the town kind of recycles itself, but everybody has a very tight knit sense of community there. Like everybody knows everybody, everybody else's names, where they live, stuff. All of our, the kids go to school together. Like the police, like two of my cousins are police officers there, so very tight knit community. And growing up, I was definitely a smaller kid, but I was really athletic. Like I was playing soccer and baseball, and my team won the championship in soccer and baseball. I wrestled in high school. I played football in high school. Sports where I did karate. I was actually really good at karate too. And sports themselves were something I enjoyed, but I always wanted something that was more of like, even wrestling, it was still a team sport. Like I wanted something that was very individual, I think, that I could rely on myself. And at 14 years old, I found bodybuilding. And that was something that, like, whatever you do in the gym, you get out of it. So whatever you put in, you get out. If you don't put a lot of work in, you don't get the results. And I was actually being punished. I got suspended from school for, I don't even remember what it was, because I was 14. And my cousin came over to the house that day and he woke me up in the morning and he brought me in the basement where he had all these weights and stuff set up in the basement. And he said, well, you're not going to sit around all day. You're going to be punished for getting suspended. It's not good. And he made me lift weights. And within an hour, I had the best time. I was having so much fun. My arms had pumped up, they ballooned up. And he was like, oh no. Like, so now it turned into, it wasn't a punishment. It was like, I found like my niche. Like I found what I really loved and didn't even know that I loved it. And I started going downstairs every day and lifting weights. And then I finally took the dumbbells upstairs to my room. They had these little adjustable dumbbells. I put it under the bed. And I'd get up in the morning before school and I would do curls. And I'd go to school with my arms pumped. And then I would come home from school. I'd do curls again before I went to bed. Like it's all what I really needed to do. And my body started developing pretty quick. Like my arms first, probably because I was doing arms 5 times a week. But I noticed that it was like the girls were noticing. I was getting a little bit of athletics. Things were changing as I was training. And I liked it. I liked the attention that I got. But I always felt like I was in control of myself at that point. Like I was in control of what was happening, as opposed to if I was on a team and someone else misses a block or does something wrong, somebody could get hurt or we lose the game. So I like that. I like that part of being alone. And I also like the part of when you go in the gym and you kind of forget about what's going on outside the gym. Like if you have all kinds of stuff like school is going crazy, your girlfriend, whatever the case may be, when you go to the gym, I can kind of leave that outside the gym and and be in there and not think about it for a while. And it allows me to kind of get my head together and move on. And in high school, I was 17 years old and I competed in bodybuilding for the first time. And back then, the guys were pretty good. You know, we had a much bigger um, community of bodybuilders back then, especially where we grew up in Massachusetts, where of course Jay Cutler, Mike Matarazzo, Paul DeMeo. I mean, there were some heavy hitters that came from where I come from. And I actually met Jay when I was about 19 years old. We met. So I've been friends with Jay legitimately probably for like 20 something years, so 30 something years now. Yeah, 20 something years. And it was a community that just kept growing, and there was opportunity there. There was opportunity that if I kept doing this, I might not have to stay in Warren, which there's nothing wrong with staying in Warren, but I just wanted more. I knew there was more outside of Warren because I had family that is in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee. I'd been to all these places, and I'd been to Florida. I'd been to different places that I saw how different things were, and I said, I want to experience that. And if I just stay here and follow the path that most people follow, I'm never going to see those things. So that's exactly what I did. I went to school at Fort Lauderdale in Florida. The whole time bodybuilding, like constantly bodybuilding. And they had the NPC Nationals there that year, and I got to see all the national competitors, and they were huge and they were ripped. And I was like, wow, like these guys are even next level above what I've seen already. And I decided I didn't want to do the art anymore. I wanted to go home and be a pro bodybuilder. Like that was what I wanted to do. And my parents, I got to give them credit. They let me do a lot of things I don't think a lot of parents would, because they trusted, that I would be able to do what I say I'm doing. And I went back home. I worked at a gas station. I pursued getting a certification for being a personal trainer because I knew that I wanted to be in the gym. So I figured if I work in the gas station, I could get enough money to get the certification. Then I could be a personal trainer and be in the gym all the time. I could train my people. I could train myself. It's like, the best case scenario. And that's exactly what I did. I went and got certified. I worked at Gold's Gym. I worked at Bally's. I worked at, several different gyms until I got to a certain point where, um, I had some stuff going on. I don't know if steroids are legal in Slovakia, but at 20 years old, I decided to
They
jump on
are.
steroids. They're illegal here, but I started to go on those, and then my life changed because I just grew. I got so big so fast that it changed everything around me. It changed people's perception of me. It changed the way people respected me and treated me. It changed everything. And I wouldn't say that bodybuilding and steroids are a gateway, but the people that I was hanging around with like to go to clubs. And I found that attractive at that point. I was single, I was a bodybuilder, I was in good shape. So I'd start going to these different clubs because I was old enough now. And of course, there are things like ecstasy and ketamine and, cocaine and different things at these clubs. And I got wrapped up in that stuff. And that really pretty much almost killed me. I eventually wound up addicted to heroin, and had no money. I think it was just, I had hit rock bottom. So I went from living this life that I built that was what I always wanted to do into losing almost everything. Like I literally was one step away from losing everything, and realized it right before it happened and pulled myself out of it. Went through rehab and then started my journey back to get myself back together. And at the point I was at, I didn't know if bodybuilding would be a way to make a living, but I was so big that I said, well, I can use the muscle, to make a living. So I started doing bouncing at clubs. I started doing private security. Eventually wound up doing private police for an area called Providence Place, which is in Providence. And that led me to a point where I had taken a step back away from bodybuilding. But before that, which it wasn't a job, I became a pro wrestler. Like you said, I was actually a pro wrestler for 4 years, and I made money doing that too before I wound up getting addicted to drugs. So here I was, I was competing in bodybuilder, pro wrestler, doing personal training, and all of a sudden everything goes away, and I revamp my life and I go back to the security and stuff I was doing, and I just didn't feel like I was fulfilled with the security. Like the money was good and it had great benefits and stuff. Everything you want as an adult, but I lacked that sense of fulfillment that bodybuilding gave me. So I started thinking about, okay, what I need to get back to that, but I just wasn't sure how, because where I lived in Rhode Island, it wasn't like you couldn't make the money doing, you couldn't do bodybuilding, but you couldn't make the money as a trainer there either. So I moved to Maryland, and when I moved to Maryland, it opened up a whole new experience, because people down here are very health conscious, and they'll pay a lot of money to be trained. And that's exactly what he did. I started the business down here and moved forward with that. And at that point, I kind of, was still competing the whole time, still competing bodybuilding. And it got to the point where I wound up not just working at gyms as a trainer, I wound up running gyms. Like I ran the largest Gold's Gym on the East Coast for a while. And as I left that, I just decided to take my clients and create my own business rather than making all the money for Gold's Gym, which is where I was working at. And that's when I started BioS3 Training. So that was in 2010. I started BioS3 Training, which is my own training business. And we've had ups and downs, good times, bad times with that. It slows down certain times of the year, gets busy other times. But it was always trying to move forward. Never staying still, trying to move forward. And then eventually, I figured out how to create the online training. So now it wasn't just in the gym training people; I could reach people all over the world. And at one point, I had 118 countries that I was training people in. It was something like 200 and something people. It was amazing how wide this had spread out. And I really spread myself too thin. I was doing too much. That I probably shouldn't have been doing that much. And at that time, I had the in-person training, and then the online training, and then YouTube started. Once YouTube started, that opened up another whole aspect of my life, because now I've been dealing with supplements and learning how to use them, and I've been using them for 20 something years. And now when YouTube came on, I was doing my bodybuilding stuff, I was vlogging, I was taking people on vacations. I basically made like a fitness lifestyle vlog, and supplements were part of it. And then certain companies started popping up, like Big Bitch Formula was the first one that hired me. They went out of business not long, maybe 2 months after I was with them. Pumpyouup.com offered me a contract. I was with them for a while. I was actually with them for about 5 years. And then while I was with Pumpyouup.com, Rich Piana came calling. 5% Nutrition came calling, and they asked me to be part of their team. And I was very excited. I knew what 5% was. I knew who Rich was. But I also knew that if they wanted me, there's probably a reason why they wanted me. So now I had an opportunity to kind of leverage something to get a little bit more out of it. And I said, okay, I want to be on the team, but I want Rich to be in my videos. If he agrees to my videos, I'll totally be on the team. And it took Rich like 1 second to say yes. Like, that's just how the type of guy he was. Piano was like the best guy. He was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And he kept his word. He was in a bunch of my videos that, and he'd be like, all right, what do we film today? Like he would ask, what do you want to film? Let's film something for your channel. We'd film for his channel and mine. So that kind of opened up a whole new kind of avenue as far as the way people were looking at supplement companies. And, the 5%ers were a different breed of, person. And while I was with 5%, which is amazing, I get to travel with those guys. Primeval Labs came calling. They had seen me and they thought that I fit with their company. They were just starting out. They were just getting off the ground. And they thought that, as far as representing the company, that I would fit. And they offered me to be basically like Rich Piana of Primeval. So we'll build the whole company around you. It'll be all you, nothing but you. And we'll have a cast of supporting characters like the 5%ers that help you, that support you. But you're the man. You're going to be the man. And I was like, wow, this is a really big opportunity. So I went back to Rich and I said, can you do this for me, what they're offering? And he's like, we can't do that right now. He's like, but I think you should take it. And I think, it'd be a good idea. He said, but, you should really just say no to any company and do your own thing. He's like, I think you have it in you to do your own thing and have your own company. And I stepped back. I said, no way. I can't do that. Like, and I just wasn't confident in myself. I didn't understand enough. And I had some more to grow, as an individual before I'll be ready for that. And I went with Primeval, and it was the most amazing. And if Primeval sees this, thank you again, guys. I thank them publicly all the time. It was the most amazing experience. I got to travel the world. I got to see things like, Dubai and places that I never would have probably if I wasn't with Primeval. And they took such good care of me all the time. And to this day, I'm still close with those guys. Like, one of the owners I'm still close with. Like, if he called me up today and said, hey, I need you to come out and do something for me, I would get on a plane and go out there right now for him. It's that type of relationship. Like, we're more family because we brought it from the beginning into a very major player in, the fitness industry. I mean, a multi-million-dollar company in 3 years from scratch.
I think it's one of the biggest currently.
Primeval is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, they literally, they had just started when I signed on. And by the time I left, it was like, I looked at it and I said, I can't believe what we've done. And really, truly, we had the cast of characters of the other athletes that were with us, but it was the two owners and myself that really were the ones brainstorming with one of them was really good with the logistics, and that's what he did. And then one of them was really good with the marketing, and I was the one that was just the face. So basically it was the marketing individual would be like, we need to do this. So they would send me the stuff to do. I would do it. And then he would put it out. And then the other owner would be the one logistic, just shipping stuff all over the place. So it was like a very, fine-tuned machine with the three of us working. And, to this day, I look at it, I'm so proud of what we did. I'm so proud because that brand is out there still. And there's they have Intracell product, which is my formulation. I created Intracell. Pyretic. I was
Nice.
involved with
I used it. I had it. So
You did? Yeah. I mean, I
yeah,
loved
yeah.
it. I mean, I have my own products called Intrapost now, which is kind of similar, but I was super proud because they allowed me to formulate it and we put it out and it was a hit. And it was an intra workout, which at the time, those weren't really popular, but we were doing well with it. And I helped formulate Pyretic, which is their fat burner.
Yeah.
We were the first company to launch flavored essential amino acids. When I first got there, we started talking about, the direction of the company. I said, look, now we're going away from the big bloated look of bodybuilding and more aesthetic look of classic physique. And physique, I said, so people are staying in tight year round, like they're staying in shape. I said, so we need to start looking at the things that kept people in shape back in the day when they weren't bloated. So when you're back, they used to have those really big pills that were amino acids. They were essential amino acids, not BCAAs. So the more I looked into it, more that I found the link that you need the essential amino acids, not just the branch chain, but you need the essentials too. But you couldn't flavor them. When you flavor them, they tasted awful, which is why the branch chains were made and not the essentials for a while. Well, they found a way to flavor them. And as soon as we did, we put out EA Max, Essential Amino Max, EA Max, and that thing, it just killed everything. It blew up so big, and it was the number one amino. And I think it's still one of the number one aminos in the entire industry after like 4 years. It's still up there, So it was like we definitely were thinking ahead of the curve and not what everybody else was doing. We were more concerned with doing what we think that the consumer needs to get better results, and not necessarily, well, what are they going to understand? What can we market? It was like, what can get better results? Because all we just need to get this in people's hands. And when they get results, it'll basically sell itself. And that's pretty much what we did, with the EA Max and stuff like that. So while I was with Primeval, Dallas McCarver passed away. And that hit the fitness industry pretty hard because he was such a young guy. And it was in August or September. I was flying out to Arkansas to do an appearance, and it was supposed to be Dallas and I together, just us two. And he passed away. So it was going to be just me, which was really weird. Because I had seen Dallas in that year in Australia. He was at the Arnold. And we were supposed to be at a booth together there. And he never came because he was sick and he had passed out on stage. So he came later in the day, and I talked to him and he said, no, I'm okay. I'm just sick. So it was weird how we were supposed to be at these events together and he never wound up there because he was sick and then he passed away. It was a little weird. And then the day before I'm supposed to fly out, Rich dies, Piana dies. So people called me and said, hey, listen, you don't have to come. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, Dallas McCarver passed. That's weird. Rich is gone. You're mourning. Like, you don't have to do it. And I said, I said, no, I need to keep my head going. Like, if I just sit home and dwell on this, it's not good. So I did. I went to Arkansas. Now I landed in Memphis, and you drive to Arkansas. That's the closest airport. So it took me about an hour and a half to drive from Memphis to Arkansas. And as I'm driving, there's this flat, it's just a long road, miles, hundreds of miles long, 2-lane road, these green fields and farms with nobody around, just cows. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And I'm driving and I'm thinking about Rich because he just passed away like 2 days before. And I look up and there was like the clouds had made the shape of a 5. And I took a picture of it while I was driving because I'm like, I can't believe I'm seeing, I'm thinking about 5%. I'm thinking about Rich. There's a 5 there. And I thought, me, I'm not a super religious guy, but I'm a spiritual guy. And I said, you know what? Here it is. I'm 40 something years old. I don't need any investors. I have, an amazing wife who will back me on this. If I want to start a company, here's my chance. Rich was a couple years older than me. I don't know how much time I have left. So I'm going to try. If I fail, I fail, but I'm going to try and launch my own company. And I talked to Primeval. They were in a transition period where they were doing some different things. And when I talked to them, I said, I think that they're kind of restructuring the company. I was like, I think this is the time for me to go this way and you guys to go that way, because you guys can take whatever money you were paying me and give it to a whole bunch of new athletes and get a whole bunch of new eyes on this. So I think I need to try this. Like for me, I just need to try this for myself. Like I'm definitely worth this. So I did, I launched GFT Labs. And the day that we launched, I had nothing. So I had told Primeval it was about a month out, and I didn't want to start working on GFT Labs until Primeval was done. It wasn't fair to be working on another project when they had paid me and I was still under contract with them. So I literally, right up to the last day of January, I was with Primeval. On February 1st, technically, that's when I was done with Primeval. And I actually got the graphic artist to make the graphic right away for the logo. And on February 1st, we finally had the logo. The first day I was off, Primeval, and that's when it was launched. We didn't have any products. I didn't realize the products take up to 3 months to actually make. So it can take up to 12 weeks to make. So now I have a company with nothing to sell. So now, I'm like, what do I do? So I started making t-shirts, started making the GIFD t-shirts, which I had done t-shirts in the past and I did well. I started making all these different designs and selling t-shirts. And I was like, for that period of time where I don't have anything, at least we have the t-shirts to keep people interested. And I can keep marketing with those and keep in touch with the people. And then when the supplements come out, we can transition those in with the t-shirts. And perfect. The first one, which was Perfect Post, came out. It was a great hit. It did really well for us. One by one, I started adding things. I think we have 7 or 8 products now. We have an antiviral that I've created that we're still trying to source it because some of the things that I put in the products, manufacturing's never even heard of. So I don't want to make the same things everybody else is making. So everything that the company has that we have, there's not another thing on the market like it anywhere. It's specifically made for what I have seen over the last 30 something years that is missing from the supplement industry, that's missing from the bodybuilding industry. So usually what bodybuilders, supplement companies do for bodybuilders is they hear about this new supplement. Let's say creatine, for example. They take creatine and they go get all the data and they market it based on the data. Studies say this, studies show that, studies show this. And then they market it and people go, oh, well, it's scientific. Okay, cool, science. Yeah, I'll buy it. Well, I look at it like this. I say, what does this bodybuilder need right now, supplement wise, to help him that he doesn't have already, that nobody's making, that could help him progress even faster? And when I started looking at that point, I saw these little holes that were missing. I said, I need to fill those holes because everybody else is competing with each other. Everybody has a creatine. Well, I'm not going to have a creatine product. I'm going to have a creatine and an inosine product. Well, what's the difference? The inosine works together with the creatine and amplifies it. Nobody really knew about it. So I put out the primazine like that. So I decided I wasn't going to compete with other companies. I was going to do my own thing. And eventually they started chasing me. So people started making the products that I was making and, making knockoffs of them and stuff, which is fine. But, we're still the original ones that come out with stuff like that. And this whole time, I was competing in bodybuilding, competing in physique. I transitioned out of bodybuilding and physique into being a judge. I'm an NPC and an IFBB judge. So I judge some of the biggest competitions here in America. And at the time, it was a way to keep me still involved in bodybuilding. As I'm getting older, my body breaks down and I can't, I get injuries. I tore my pec, I tore my rotator cuff, I tore my bicep tendon. And it was like I had to step away from bodybuilding competition, but being a judge allows me to continue to be involved and be around the sport and help the sport grow, that I love and has given me so much. So that's pretty much where I started and where I'm at now between the companies and, what I'm doing right now. But it's, all the little things like pro wrestler, a supplement company, traveling to Dubai, an NPC judge, a physique competitor, a bodybuilder, a pro wrestler. Like when you start thinking of all this stuff, it literally sounds like a Forrest Gump movie with like an athletic ability to it.
Yeah, but it's really interesting, and the approach for the supplement company, it's amazing because, as you said, like a lot of products are lacking in bodybuilding, and if you read the studies, it's like many times a simple thing that misses out in the industry is like more helpful to the bodybuilders than BCAs or something
Right.
like different.
Multivitamin, people overlook multivitamins a lot, and I think they're important. Your immune system is important. If you're sick, you can't train. If you can't train, you can't progress. So I look at things like that. Whereas the average company, they'll put out a multivitamin, but they wind up putting out like a $45 multivitamin. And I don't understand that because then you look at this, all these other things besides multi herbs and all kinds of stuff in it. When realistically, what we need is to make sure people be consistent with the multivitamin to stay healthy. So you need a fair priced product, but not like multi-dosed. So they have like 3, 6 capsules. Mine's 1 capsule. It's $24. So that way there's people can afford to stay on it all the time. Take 1 capsule in the morning and you're good to go. So there was definitely a lot more than just what products to do. It's how to present the products, how to get how to use the vehicle for it. Instead of 6 capsules, 1 capsule. Instead of putting all these herbs that you don't need. In manufacturing, I got to give manufacturing credit. NutriCap is where I get my stuff manufactured, and they've been very helpful with learning about some of the sneaky stuff that goes on in the supplement industry. So when I was making the Primazine, they were like, "Do you want to put a beta alanine in it?" I was like, "No. Why would I want to do that?" They said a lot of companies do it, and I asked why they do it. They said because you can feel it, not because it actually does anything,
Yeah,
but you can
right.
feel it. So people think it's working, so they keep buying it. And I was like, "Do people really do that?" They're like, "Yeah, that's what happens." I was like, "No, I don't want that in my product. Like, if it doesn't do anything, I don't want it." Or when I made the multivitamin, they told me straight out, they said, "Do you want to put some of these herbs in there?" I'm like, "Why would I want to do this?" I said, because you can put 20 cents of herbs and charge an extra $10 for it because they think they're getting so much more. The value is so much more, even though it does nothing. And I'm like, no, I don't want any of that stuff in it. I just want my multivitamin. So they've been very pivotal in helping me understand why some of these products get made. Because I look at them now and they don't make any sense from a lot of companies, and now I know why. If they jam it full of enough stuff, you'll pay a premium price for it, but they'll put very cheap quality ingredients in it, and they're going to make a huge profit margin. So I understand how it works, and that's their business model. Mine's not. I mean, we don't order tons of product like that because we're a small company. We want to make sure our stuff works, our stuff is safe, and that we have something that, if you were, looking for a specific need for a specific goal, that's what we want. We want to make sure that we have it there. It's not just a general thing like everything else on the market.
Yeah, and like the two things that you mentioned, it's like the biggest thing that I get angry on, because like I go work out with a friend and we take some pre-workout with like really good stuff for like mental focus and stuff and like for pump, but it doesn't have beta alanine, and he's like, oh, this pre-workout doesn't work, and I'm like, why it doesn't work? Like you'll feel it like it doesn't work instantly, and he's like, it's already like 10-15 minutes and I'm not itchy. Usually I'm itchy and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
uh, and it works, and I'm like, it doesn't work, and I explain him like it's the beta alanine, where if you want the beta alanine to work, you must split it at like 4 dosages a day.
yeah. You got to
And
load
another
it.
thing, like the multivitamin, it's like someone shows me like this is the best multivitamin, and I ask them why. And they're like, oh, it has this herb, it has ginger extract and stuff, but the dosages are like 5 to 10 milligrams.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't even do.
there to
Yeah,
like just to sell it, and it isn't even like close to like functional dosage.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't know that though. They just go by what they feel. And a lot of these companies are making high stem pre workouts. I saw one the other day, had 600 milligrams of caffeine. It had yohimbe, it had huperzine, it had DMMA in it. And I'm looking at it going, that's a lot of stims to be put in your body at one time. But people, they feel like if they're stimulated, then it's working. And they don't realize that as you're stimulated like that, your cortisol levels are rising. Your body is going into almost like a state of emergency or panic. So if you're training on top of it, your body's first um, course of action is not to grow muscle. It's to try to make sure it doesn't die. It's trying to calm itself down. It's trying to lower your heart rate. It's trying to lower your blood pressure. It's trying to, lower your body temperature. It's fighting against what people are trying to do. But they're so convinced that because they're all sped up on it, that they're having a great workout. And then the problem is I see these people year after year, and they look the same. They
Yeah.
don't look any different. They don't make gains, but they're taking this pre-workout, and they're paying $40 a month for it, and it's costs $3 to make or whatever. They're just cranking it out, and I try to educate as much as I can, but it's hard to educate people when they're already kind of, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they've already been marketed to where they think that that's how it works. Usually, the way that I find it works, whoever gets to the person first, the person believes that person, and they don't believe anybody else. So if I have a trainer and that my trainer tells me to do something one way, 50 other people can tell me how to do it. I'm like, no, no, no. My guy told me how to do it. Even if he's dead wrong, because he was the one that got to me first, you get emotionally attached to the trainer, the company, the pre-workout. It's your pre-workout. This is mine, the one I use, and then it winds up becoming not even the fact that it works. You just have chosen it. You've taken it on as part of your life.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like people are nowadays, it's like crazy with the stimulants, and
I'm
DMAA is
surprised
already
nobody's been
banned,
hurt yet.
right?
What's that?
DMAA is banned in
Yeah.
USA.
Well, it's weird because it's kind of banned. Like you can't put it in a supplement. However, one company, which I believe, which company is it? I think Mesomorph, High Tech Pharmaceuticals, I think is the one that has the rights to it, and they can actually put it in products because they actually sell Mesomorph and a couple other things with it in it. And they've gone to court and stuff like that. They've tried to stop them from selling it, and they can't because they have some kind of right to sell it or something like that. So High Tech Pharmaceuticals bought up a lot of the companies like Jack 3D. They bought up anything that had DMA in it. They kind of bought those companies so they could actually re-release the products with the DMAA in it because nobody else could. Only they can. So a lot of the companies are under the High Tech Pharmaceutical banner now, and they're allowed to put the things in the products that other companies can't because they have some kind of court case that says they can do it. So yes, it's banned, but anything from the High Tech banner can have it in it, and they sell it freely, and it's legal.
A lot of people, here in Slovakia are using it, but it's like really expensive to get here, because like 50 to 60 euros, which is like a lot.
So
I couldn't use it personally because I take cortisol, and on top of that, causing the physical stress from the DMA, I just couldn't probably handle it.
yeah, it's powerful stuff. I've used it when it was in Jack 3D. I'd use that stuff, and I remember one time I took it and I took it on an empty stomach, and my hearing changed. Like it was very strange. And I was so amped up when I got to the gym that I felt like I had done cocaine or something. Like that's how it was too much, and I did a set, and I was breathing so heavy. My heart rate was up. I like sat on the bar, and I was like trying to calm myself down. I was like, man, this stuff can really, really pushes you up, and you feel euphoric. You almost feel high from it. Like, you feel so good from it that you're having a great workout, you're having a great time. Like it's like an experience that you're having on it because you're so, amped up, and you're, I don't know if it's adrenaline that's pumping through, it makes you feel good, your endorphins. So I can see how that, the products with the high stims in it can make you feel better, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to grow better, or get better results.
Yeah, like it takes its like you get crash after post workout, like you feel like shit, and then the recovery is pretty bad because it's like the people don't understand. It's like how long the half life is. It's not like it doesn't stimulate you in 2 hours, but if they take it like afternoon, their recovery sucks because
Yeah,
the sleep isn't such a good quality. They have a low quality deep sleep and stuff. So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that people are buying supplements that are really unnecessary, and they lose focus on the important stuff.
What happens is, unfortunately, the industry the way it is, um, especially the way that it is with social media now, you have these influencers. They're called influencers. They're called influencers because they have influence over people. In a company, like, I have no athletes, I have no influencers, and people ask me, why don't you sign somebody on? Because nobody can say since we started the company that they built their physique with our supplements. You know what I mean? They've been training for 30 years, they've been taking steroids, and all of a sudden, hey, this is the best supplement ever. The first person that we have that um, legitimately used them was my training partner Jorge Villatoro. So he did the NPC Nationals, and during that, he used the products for that, and he turned pro he's an IFBB pro now with straight first place votes. He was like unanimous first place votes as soon as he came out, and he won the class, and that turned him pro. But it was also turning pro at the most prestigious show that we have in the entire country, and he used the supplements. Now, is that what made him win? It's one of the things that we put together in the program that helped. I trained him in the gym. We did all made sure he got those cardio in, made sure the diet was on point, and then added the supplements in to support everything else that was going on. But he's the only one so far that's used them nonstop, straight through. And for that, I mean, that would make him the first person that would technically be like our athlete or something. But there's a lot of companies out there that they just go up to you like, and for instance, Primeval, when they approached me, they were like, this is what we want to do. And they sent me a huge box. It was like, I mean, it was huge. It was full of, at the time they had SARMs. It was full of SARMs and all the stuff they had. And I had just like 100 bottles of this stuff. So I did this stuff for about 2 months to see what happened, because I had gone off steroids at the time. And I knew that if I took something that was supposed to be like a SARM, I would see results if it really worked. And it did. Really quickly it worked. And I was like, wow, those are pretty good. So at that point, I was like, okay, I can represent this company because I've tried this stuff. I know what it did. And I have already told people for 10 years that I took steroids before. They're not going to look at me and say, well, that's what built Jerry's physique. Now, what they're going to be able to do is say, Jerry was on steroids and he went off. Now he's taking this, and this is how he's changed. And that's what he looks like because of this now. So even the way we marketed that, I never hid the fact. And Primeval was great about that. They never wanted me to hide the fact about anything that I did. They let me talk about how I did steroids. They let me talk about everything. So that way there, we weren't trying to scam the public. And I even wanted to put out something with Primeval where it was a picture of me and have a disclaimer. This physique was originally built with steroids, no longer on steroids. Now I maintain with this. And I thought that would be a really good way to put an ad. And they were like, that's a crazy ad. Like that's really going overboard. But I wanted to be so transparent with everybody to make them know, like, 5% products didn't build my physique, and Primeval's products didn't build my physique, but they've allowed me, when I came off all the drugs, to have a better physique and recover better. And that's what they're for. They're there to help you recover and become a better, version of yourself, not necessarily to blow you up 60 pounds, like, or look like Dorian Yates or whatever. So we have a lot of people out there that just get paid and they point to the product. And some of them don't even take the product. Some of them take it, but it does absolutely nothing for them because they're already taking other stuff. But I think it's important to be completely transparent with the viewers and the followers to know that, if somebody didn't build their physique with that product, they shouldn't be advertising it that way.
And how about you do have some athletes already in your company?
No, we haven't done any athletes. I started doing some ambassador type stuff, and what I found was most people that want to do the ambassadorships, they want to get paid every month. For some reason, everybody, and I'm just going to be 100% real here because no point of not being real. People think they're worth a lot more than they really are. There's a lot of people out there that don't have much of a following. They don't do any work, and they want to basically get paid. They think that if you pay them $1,000 a month, they put up one picture a week of themselves holding your product, that's good. And I'm like, well, for that $1,000, there needs to be $1,000 that comes back in. You need to at least break even to get your return on investment in. If I'm giving you $1,000 and you put up one picture and nothing's coming in, number one, I'm going to cut you as an athlete. Number two, you got to work harder. And a lot of them don't want to work harder. They think that they're Kim Kardashian or somebody. They put up one post and that's good enough. And a lot of companies will, force the athletes to put up like 10 posts a month, and they chase them down and they force them to do it. And I found myself trying to explain to people like, look, no offense, but you don't have a contract anywhere right now and you haven't. Do you know why? When they say why, is it because you're not that big on social media and you don't work hard enough to bring the money back into the company. A company's not going to keep you or hire you if you can't do anything for the company. And I just got fed up with dealing with the people. There was a lot of big egos. There was a lot of people that, and as soon as I started the company, I had IFBB pros coming from out of the woodwork, sponsor me. I want to be part of the company. And I knew what they wanted. All of them wanted money, and some of them have jumped from company to company. And when I see that, I know that they're not bringing the money in because they're leaving. They're getting not fired, but they're getting let go. Because if you have somebody that's making you a lot of money like that, like Primeval, what they did was they had me come in, and like the first couple of months, they gave me like a base salary, and then based on what I brought in, they would change that salary based on what I brought in. So when I started out down here, the first month, next month I did this, next month I did this. By 3 or 4 months, I was making 5 times what I made the first month because that's what I was bringing in. I was converting really well. It was never just, well, give me whatever because I'm me, But a lot of these people are like, well, I'm a pro, so I deserve this, and I'm like, well, that's great that you're pro, and I think that's awesome, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily are the right fit for a company to help that company grow. So there's definitely some the good and bad part of the ambassadorships. I did like the way that Rich Piana did it the best, to be totally honest with you. He didn't go after like professional athletes. He said, you know what? Those of you out there that are just busting your ass every day, I want you to be my athlete. I don't care if you're pro. I don't care if you look good. But if you get up every morning, do your cardio, and you eat chicken all day long, and you drink your water and do your thing, that's the lifestyle. That means that if you do that, you could probably do more in life because you can force yourself to do that and stay strict. So if you can force yourself to do that stuff, you can force yourself to work 2 jobs. You can force yourself to work overtime. You can force yourself to do better at your job so you elevate yourself to get a better position at your job. That's a 5% mentality. Well, what he did was stray away from all the pros, and it wasn't about the money. People just wanted to have the t-shirts, so he was paying them for like t-shirts and some supplements. They were extremely happy just to be part of it, but they were not the people over there with their hands out asking for money and saying they deserve this, they deserve that. It was more of, he saw an opportunity to take the person that really normally wouldn't have any opportunities and give them an opportunity to give it, to take the ball and run with it. So that was a whole different ball game how he marketed like that, and I think that was really awesome the way he did it.
You know what experience I do have? Like I have two athletes that represent my brand. It's IFBB Pro Slavoj Bednar and IFBB Elite Pro, which is the European IFBB.
Right.
She's pro. She's a pro bikini fitness, Radka Zombatova, and they're both like they love to be the part of the company, and they're so humble. Like they just like give the love back, and they're like they love to be a part of it, and they're like such good, and they interact with the brand and they represent it really well. And then some guy that is thinking about competing, like it's like he thinks about it like for 2 years but doesn't want to do the work, like doesn't want to diet and shit. And he's like, he sends me a message and doesn't even greet me, and he's like, oh, if you give me like 10 of these and this, I will do a post or I will shoot a story on Instagram. And I'm like looking like, what the fuck? And it's like, I have this many followers and stuff, and I'm like, okay, but like,
Yeah.
so the
And
professional bodybuilders and bikinis like are loving to be a part of it, and are like so humble. And then some kid who thinks about competing is like, oh, give me this and this, and I might do a post about it.
absolutely, I had a power lifter that approached me, and he had like a state record and all this stuff. And I was like, cool, you know. He's like, and you know, I just want to be part of the company. And that's generally, I don't know if this is with your company, but people just want to be a part of it. You know, they're excited about what it is and what it represents. They want to be just like 5%.
Yeah.
And so I checked him out. He's like, yeah, and I just won this meet. I won that meet. I'm like, I really don't care what you won, but he was enthusiastic. He was excited. Like he was excited about the brand. I was like, well, and he's like, I used your supplements for the meet and I won. He's like, I used them the whole time. Here's the proof. And I had all of his orders that he had put in. I said, oh, wow. Okay. He really did. I said, okay, let's do it. So I gave him the ambassadorship. I give them a code. And what happens is I allow them to make money by, and a lot of the companies are not paying money. They just give you supplements or t-shirts or whatever. And I say, here's your code. Whatever at the end of the month you're able to bring in, I'm going to pay you that. So if you at the end of the month you have $300 that is under your name, and I'll show them, like I have the back end of the website, I'll send it to them. If you brought in $300 that month, I'm going to give you 300. If you brought in 2,000, I'm going to give you 2,000. Like whatever you can bring in, you can make as much money as you possibly want, but you're going to have to go out there and do it. And you know, we'll give you the opportunity by giving the products and stuff, and we'll help put up, you know, we'll help put you on the website and stuff like that too. So you'll still get help from us because most of them don't have a lot of followers. And he's like, yeah. So I sent him all these shirts and all this product, and I never heard from him. I never heard a peep from him. I said, that's weird. And he actually blocked me on Instagram. And I was like, well, that's even weirder. So I went on my friend's phone and I looked him up, and sure enough, he was there. He signed with another company. So I said, you know what, I've just about had enough of this. He could have literally just called me up and been like, or shoot me a message, say, hey man, here's the deal. I have all your stuff. I'll send it back to you, but I signed it with another company. I'm so sorry. You know, I had a better opportunity. I'd be like, that's great. Keep the stuff, use it. And, you know, like we'll talk down the line, whatever, you know, but it was just one of those things that rubbed me the wrong way. This guy spent months coming after me and bugging me. I finally give him the opportunity, and he takes, you know, a few $100s worth of product and shirts and stuff and just runs with it. And I'm like, I don't know whether he sold it. I don't know whether he used it, but then he blocked me on top of it. So I wouldn't see what really was going on. So there's definitely some people that are, you know, and they're out for themselves, which I think that everybody needs to look out, watch out for themselves. But when you're out there burning bridges, you know, eventually word gets around, you know, so eventually there's going to be a company that's going to pop up and you're going to want to be involved with it. And you're going to go approach them. They're going to be like, no, we know who you are. You know, that's one thing that I never burned bridges with any company or any person. Like I worked with, not for, but I worked with Isatori for a while, who created BioGrow. And when they approached me, it was an interesting thing. Mark Lobliner, who's a friend of mine now, I didn't really know him at the time. I went to the Olympia and I saw him and I asked him about BioGrow. I said, do you think this stuff really works? He said, yes. I said, cool. So I walked over. It was a buy one, get one free. So I walked over, I bought one, and they gave me one free. I started it. I liked it so much. I hit up Mark. I said, hey, man, this stuff is really good. He passed it along to the CEO and owner of Isatori, Stephen Adelaide. So I get this message from Stephen Adelaide, the owner, CEO, millionaire. I was like, who's this guy, right? He said, hey, we would love to have you come down and work for Isatori. And I said, I'm kind of, doing my own thing right now. I have these other companies I'm involved with. I said, but I would love to come out. And he said, look, why don't you just come out? You don't have to wear the Isatori shirt. We'll just put you at the booth. And nobody was doing this at the time. So Stephen really saw ahead that this was something he could do. And at the time, all the pro bodybuilders were not really sought after. It was the YouTubers. They wanted the YouTube fitness community. Like if you put a YouTuber in the expo, the line would line up for a mile long, 2-hour wait. Rich had a 4-hour wait, but the people loved it. And he had Chris Jones and Vince, who was Physiques of Greatness. He had Nick Wright going, and he had me going, and then he had Big J Extreme Fitness going. So there was 4 different YouTube channels at one booth, and he didn't care if we wore the shirts. Now some of them he signed a contract, so they had to wear the shirts and stuff like that. But they allowed me to go in there without that. So when I went in there, it brought my crowd in there, but my crowd was now I was exposed to everybody else's stuff at the same time. So now you had this situation where they were allowing people that didn't even work for the companies to come in and be at the booths and represent the company for the day. And I got to the point where I'd actually signed on with 5%. And I told them, I said, look, I have this other thing going with Isatori. It won't interfere with, what's going on with 5%. I said, matter of fact, I said, I won't wear their shirts. I said, I'll still wear my 5% stuff. I said, but when I go to their booth, I'll wear my BioS3 stuff. I said, but it's a way for me to still interact with fans and stuff. I said, it's good for all of us. And Rich was like, it's good. Let's do it. So I would go to the expos and I'd have half the time at Isatori. Then I'd change clothes and I'd go to the 5% booth. So I was able to actually do both of those like that. So I've been around companies that are successful. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the industry that there's ever been. And at the same time, seeing how their business models have changed, seeing how they thought outside of the box, seen how, like Stephen Adelaide had a vision. He had a vision of having us all there. And even if we weren't signed as athletes, we would still help his brand grow because we were there. And at the same time, because he had 4 different channels there, our each channels would grow because the other channels had people coming in. So it was good for everybody. And that was the environment that I really enjoyed because everybody benefited from it. It was the company, it was the YouTube channels, it was all of us. Whereas now I don't know. I mean, we don't have expos right now because of COVID, but in last time we had the expos and stuff was very different. They weren't really hiring people for the booths. If they did, they'd basically, say, okay, you have to fly out here yourself, and then you can work the booth. And what we'll do is we'll give you $100 for the day and buy you dinner that night. So things have changed like a lot compared to where they were before. But I'm very blessed and fortunate to have been working with some of the most amazing companies and people, learning a lot, but also experiencing things through a view that I could have only dreamed about. And now I look back and I go, that was my life. Like I lived that. Like, I was at the Olympia with, all the Olympians and stuff at Phil Heath's cabana, hanging out with them after the Olympia when he won. Like, I can't wrap my head around how my life has been so amazing since I just decided not to burn those bridges. I'm still friends with Steven today. I'm still friends with 5%, still friends with Primeval. I'm still literally to the point where if I said, okay, I'm going to close up GI50 Labs, I can approach these companies and probably find a place, maybe not as the face of a company, but maybe doing marketing or whatever for the companies, because I just never saw the reason to burn the bridges. I always respected Rich. I always respected Steven. I respected the different people at the companies, and I really liked them. Like I personally liked them as people. Why would I do something, that would put me in a position where they would no longer want to be my friend, talk to me, opportunities that you lose everything when you let your ego get in play. And I think that a lot of people do that. They think that they have that they as an influencer hold all the power. And that's really not it. You can't influence people if nobody sees you. And you can't influence people if you don't have anything to influence them with. So these companies give you the availability to be seen and, have something to market to the people and influence them with. But at the same time, you have to understand that like the company and you, it's a relationship. And it's a 50-50 relationship. It's not you rule everything and they just keep paying you to do nothing just because, you have to, pull your weight too.
Yeah, that's all. That's the stuff like a lot of the bros or the people like are giving the energy back, and then
Yeah,
some of the influencers that aren't even taking the products are like they only want to take from the company and not give anything back.
absolutely. No doubt.
When you mentioned Rich, a lot of people I know have been with him in Gold's gym or met him at some expo and talked to him, and they're saying like he's such a nice guy. It's like, or he was, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what's
absolutely. He
your
was a great guy.
experience with him?
He was, like I said, he, right off the bat, he, was willing to be in my videos, which was awesome because I knew
Yeah,
that my channel would grow just from having him in it. If I put his name in the title, boom, tens of
sure.
thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hits. And he wasn't just cool with it. Like he was, like we'd sit down and have dinner and stuff, and we would talk, and like he was so creative. Like his mind was always going. He could create viral videos out of nowhere, and he didn't necessarily know what was going to be viral, but he knew it was going to be cool. He knew people were going to pay attention to it when he put it out. And he did that for everybody. He literally took people that should never have had an opportunity. Like they have 200 followers. But you're not really going to influence much people with 200 followers. However, if he had 60,000 people with 200 followers, now you're following. So he gave people the opportunity, and if they did well, he'd move them up. He'd show them more in his YouTube and stuff like that, and then their social media would grow. He would help them. And I think that all of us that were on 5% owe Rich a debt because all of us grew because of him, and what he did for us. And he was very selfless a lot of times. If you go to the expo, he would roll in late. That's what he did. Like he was always fashionably late, but the expo closed at 5:30. He'd be there until 7 o'clock signing things and taking pictures. And security would actually come and kick us out of the building because we would be there so long because there'd be so many people waiting to see him, and he wouldn't go to the last person. And then once they said you got to leave, and there's still people there, he'd be like, "Come on, walk with me, and we'll take the pictures while we're walking." So we're walking through the expo trying to leave, and he's taking pictures and talking to people. And then we get outside in the foyer, he's doing everything out there, and then they're pushing us out of the foyer, and he's doing it outside. And that's what Rich would do. He would constantly take care of his fans. Like he understood the importance of the people that were coming to see him. I think because he at one point was a fan and had a bad experience, and he never wanted people to have that like around him. But I can tell you from personal experience, as far as I'm sure everybody that knew him can tell you what I just told you about him there. But as far as Rich goes, I love 5%. I talk to him probably once a week, once every 2 weeks. We would talk on the phone, and he would call. He'd be like, Jerry, like he had this way of like saying your name, like he was real low. He's like, what up? He'd say shit like that. And he'd be like, how is Primeval treating you? Are they treating you? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, man, they're doing great. He goes, are they doing everything they said they would? I said, yeah. I said, and more. He's like, great. I'm glad to hear it, man. Like he would check on me. He would check up on me to make sure everything was okay. And then when stuff happened, like the day that he slapped around Jason Genova doing the slap boxing at the Arnold or whatever it was, I got a phone call from him like the day after, like the expo was over. That Monday, I was on the treadmill at the gym and I got a call from him. And he was like, I can't believe I did that. He goes, I thought it was an act. I didn't think he really had any kind of mental disability. I thought it was an act for his YouTube. He goes, I can't believe it. And when he's like, this is crazy. Like he was such a down to earth guy that like every conversation you had with him made sense and you learned something and walked away with it, it was what it was, but a lot of times you didn't feel like, especially on the phone, like you weren't picturing that big, massive monster. You were just talking to Rich. You know what I mean? You almost forget, what he looks like. And I'll be honest with you, my ex-girlfriend and my wife, my now wife, when she met Rich, I brought him and said, hey, Rich, this is, my girlfriend, Erin. And he turns around and he goes, hey, he goes, how are you? And he goes to hug her. And she went like this. She actually cowered because he was so big. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, it's okay, babe. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, no, okay. And she hugged him. She was like, I can't believe, a human being looks like that. Like, just to touch him. She's like, it was crazy. And I think he played up to that. I think he liked that part, that people were freaked out by him and they were impressed by him. And, part of his ego like that. But at the same time, he would stand there with the smallest, skinniest guy in the whole place and tell him how to gain weight for 5 hours. Like he would just talk and talk and talk and talk and help and help and help and help. And then, like, Richard, you got to go. You got to be at the expo. Oh, okay. Hit me up an email, man. And then the guy would hit him up on email and he would respond to it. Not every email he get to, but he would respond to a lot of them himself. So that's just the type of guy he was. And I saw him about 2 weeks before he passed away. I was in Las Vegas at Super League. So Jay Jong put on this, it was a new sport called Super League, which was based on Dorian Yates' training, Blood and Guts. And they had hired me to come out and film it. They hired Rich to come out. They hired Kai Green. They had a bunch of people that came out. And I remember seeing him, and he was down to about 265 pounds, which for him would be considered small because he's normally like 290 or whatever it was, 300 pounds. And he looked healthy. He looked happy. He was excited about life and what was coming up next. He said, he's just looking forward to having some downtime soon. Like he was just on the go nonstop. That he said, I got maybe about another year and I need to step down away from this stuff so I can just live. He's like, because it's constantly nonstop, like traveling and editing and creating and filming. And like, he said, it's just so much. I don't really get to enjoy a lot of my life right now. He's like, I want to travel and go some places and spend time. He was with Chanel. Chanel was with him at the time, at the event. He's like, I want to spend some time traveling with her. We're going to talk about getting married or whatever. Like there was a lot of stuff that he was excited about. And, in the back of my head, I said, man, he's finally got it together because he's slimming down. He's trimming down, which he needs to for health. And then I got a message from Stan McQuay about 2 weeks later. He said, hey, man, I had first got a message from Greg Valentino. Greg Valentino called me. He said, what's going on with Rich? And he's all like, what's going on? What's going on with Rich? So what are you talking about? He was in the hospital. Yeah, he fell down. He hit his head. I was like, what? So I hit up Rich, just to see, I don't know if it's real or not, because if it wasn't, he's going to respond right back to me and I didn't hear anything. And finally I got a hold of Chanel and she told me like, yeah, he had a heart attack and he fell and hit his head. I'm like, oh shit. So she said, he's on like, the machines and stuff now, but there's a possibility he's going to be okay. So I sent him another text. I said, hey man, I said, when you see this, when you wake up, know that you scared the shit out of all of us, but make sure you get a hold of me, like I sent him that text. And then I got a call from Stan McQuay about, I don't know, maybe a week later, a message from Stan McQuay. He said, hey man, Rich just passed. And I was like, how do you know? Like, apparently Stan McQuay grew up with Rich. Like they really knew each other really well. And they had friends that in the family that were in common. They had told them that Rich passed. And I waited. I didn't say anything online. I waited to see, if Stan was right. And he was right. Rich had passed away. But I can't tell. I mean, there are people that, maybe had arguments with him and stuff. There are people that maybe he rubbed the wrong way with some of the things that he said or his lifestyle and stuff. But the people that really knew him really liked him, like legitimately liked him. They didn't give a shit if he was huge. They didn't care how much money he had. He was just fun to be around, and he made you feel good about yourself because he's always complimenting you. You know, like here's this 350-pound guy, and you're standing there at 220. He's like, "You look huge. Oh, what up, bud?" You know, and you're like, "I do." You know, you're looking around, you're like, then you start to feel good about yourself because he's saying, you know, stuff like, "This is my boy Jerry, and he's look at it, he's huge right now. Look at check this out. Show him your arm." You know, he does stuff like that, and you're like, and you flex your arm. You know, you do stuff like that, and then you walk away feeling like, "Wow, man, that guy, you know, that superstar just you know made a big deal about me." You know, he always made it about other people and not himself, which again, I think that's his legacy too. He really cared about other people, or he at the very least really loved his fans.
Yeah, yeah. Rest in peace to him because he's such an amazing person from everything I've heard and from the videos and stuff. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
And after his passing, you also started trimming down a little bit.
Yeah, it was another eye opener. So I used to use Rich as the measuring stick. I would say, well, everything that I've done way less than Rich has. So if he's healthy and okay, then I'm going to be fine because I didn't even do what he did. And then he died. And I said, whoa. I was like, now it's real, you know, because I was in my 40s. I think I was 40 or 41. He was 44 or 46 when he died. I'm 45 now. So I'm right around the age when he died. And that really was an eye opener going, okay, I need to start taking this more seriously because when you're younger, you can use all the drugs and stuff and you're fine. Like your body can recover and you can heal. When you're older, I mean, you have a heart attack or something like that, it's over. You know, like you may never be normal again. You may never be able to work out again or something like that if you even lived the heart attack, through the heart attack. So after he passed, that's when I said, okay, you know, we really got to kind of revamp some things. And, you know, I walk around now at about, I think today I weighed in at 213 or something like that. And I try not to go above like 215, 216, somewhere around there. Try to keep my
It's
weight
like
down.
96 kilos, right? 96
It would be,
kilos.
do the math. It would be
I know that 212 on the Olympia is 96.5 kilos.
97.7 kilos. So yeah, I weigh 97.7 kilos. Just my walking around weight, my normal weight. The heaviest I was the kilos was the heaviest I ever was that can't be right. So it would be 273 divided by 2.2. Yeah, I guess so. 124 kilos.
That's
Yep,
a lot.
273 pounds. So it was 124 kilos.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty big, but I mean, I don't think I could ever be that again. It's just not healthy. But to do that, to get there, I had to train so hard, eat so much, and take so much drugs that I don't think that I'd be able to do it. Like mentally, I don't even think I'd be able to do it anymore.
And you also have a great video on DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which
Yeah,
is
DMT, what an experience.
which is the strongest psychedelic basically there is, and it opens the mind to a lot of people. And it probably also had a thing about that trimming down and taking the gear and stuff, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, not directly, but I mean indirectly by you start understanding there's more to life than just what your physique, how big you can be. You know, you start opening up these other. Once your mind starts opening, you start seeing things around you that um, you start realizing that or I myself, I've been focusing on just that one thing, bodybuilding, for so long that I didn't even realize there's stuff going on around me that are important things in life, like different relationships. I mean, I've lost relationships with so many different women throughout the years because of bodybuilding, just because I was so focused that I wanted to do that. Well, now my life is more about the relationships. You know, relationships with my wife, relationship with my friends, like you know, with my you know, the different people that I work with when I'm traveling and stuff like that. So now it's all about relationships and not what I look like. It was like the switch was flipped, and I think that um, excuse me, I think that it was needed because as you know, Rich passed and I started slimming down. Like even the hair and the beard is different. I was bald before and I'm clean shaven. As you start to trim down, you're looking in the mirror. You're still seeing your face and your head, but your body's doing this, and it no longer looks like you. You know, so now you start going, well, without bodybuilding, what am I? Who am I without bodybuilding? So that's where those questions, like DMT helps with those questions. You know what I mean? Like that's one chapter of my life. I still want to train. I still want to look good. Now I'm a judge, but I don't need to look like I'm competing anymore. How do you handle that? You know, a lot of guys can't handle the downsizing and they stay on and they wind up like, you know, passing away or having heart attacks or whatever. But the DMT more was about spiritually because I learned that something else was out there besides the physique. And it was more about learning what else was out there. I did mushrooms first. I did psilocybin first. And that was a great experience. I learned a lot on that. I went through it with a shaman. He walked me through it, and great experience. And then the DMT came up. Like, a friend of mine was pretty proficient with DMT. He was the one that was like, "Here's what it does. Here's what it's applicable for." And yes, I did. I've done maybe 9 or 10 DMT trips, and every one I learned something else. But it's when I was younger, I only wanted to learn about bodybuilding. I wanted to know everything there was about diet, training. I was like a sponge, absorbing everything that I could. And now I realize there's an entire universe out there of all kinds of knowledge that I can absorb like that, that I kind of kept away because I was so focused on one thing. So now it's like I'm interested in history, like world history, US history. I'm interested in these weird things like these cryptozoologist things that are like Bigfoot and all these weird things that they can't talk about, they don't understand. I'm interested in, of course, the dynamics of how the food still affects the body and stuff like that. I'm super interested in human psychology. So how the way the human brain works, how people can literally see one thing and something else is going on right in front of them, and their mind can change it based on their perception. Like, there's so much out there that I don't want to say I'm consumed with now, but I'm aware of and open to, that I think DMT and the mushrooms and stuff like that helps.
I think that you figured out a lot of stuff that most people don't figure out for their whole life, and you try to share it on social media as much as possible. But how does the censorship stop you from doing that? How much percent?
Well, the censorship, if I could put up all the DMT stuff, bodybuilding stuff, I can put it all up. If you put up anything about politics right now in America, censored like that. So I wouldn't say that I didn't vote. I didn't vote here because I don't really believe that that Donald Trump or Joe Biden is the right guy. I believe that there should be a different one, but I can't just say, oh, I'm going to vote for one because it's my only option. I say I don't vote. If I don't agree with it, I don't vote. So I put up things that again, I see things in a different perspective as people, because I look at things from all angles, put myself in other people's positions and stuff. And as you start to put that stuff up, now the censorship started happening. And they really clamped down on my channel. I think I get maybe about an eighth of the interaction that I did, 6 months ago. Like, it's really, really taken a big toll, but it's all about, because I put up a few things about politics rather than the bodybuilding stuff. I could talk about steroids all day long and they won't censor it. But I say one thing about Donald Trump and they'll go off the handle and then nobody sees it, or they delete it, or they fact check it and they put it so that it organically doesn't get out there to people. So it just depends on like what you put up. And my thing is, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. If I have a feeling about something or I see something a certain way, I put it out there. I've always done it. It just happens to be that now it's politics. Now, some people will be like, well, Jerry, why do you get involved in politics? Well, because for the last year, that's all we've had here in America, between the lockdowns and the different restrictions that we have due to COVID. All we've had to do nonstop is politics on TV, politics when you go to the gym, people are talking about it, politics on the radio, politics online, politics on social media. So it's been jammed in our face for 6 months. So I'm like, how can I talk about bodybuilding when there's no gyms open? How can I talk about bodybuilding when most people can't even afford their rent, let alone to go buy enough food to be a bodybuilder? Right? What are the topics that are affecting my life right now? Some of the things are political. So I'd put those up. And because of the political stuff, that got me censored. So um, I'm not, I don't care. I did it. I don't care. I'm not mad about it. I mean, I'm frustrated with it, but at the same time, I'm glad I did it, because at least I'm being true to myself. Even if I lost my whole following and everybody disappeared or they blocked me or they deleted me, at least I was true to me. And I think that's more important than chasing views and likes.
Yeah, great point. And I also think that if you do it this way, that a lot of people are gonna have a different feeling about you and are gonna stay, because some of the people they just put stuff and one time they put this, other time they put this, and people make an image about them how fake they are. And even if they have like I don't know how many thousand followers, they can leave them or someone can hack their account and stuff. It's like
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. I think that if people were just more true to themselves in general, I think the whole world would be a better place, to be totally honest with you. If they stopped relying on what Kim Kardashian says or what Kanye West says or what Donald Trump says, like, why don't you rely on what you think, how you truly feel, what your view of things are? Like, that's, each one of us sees the world through our own perspective. Like, we all grow up in different ways, different households. We have different views, different morals, different everything, different ways of learning, different everything. So each one of us is going through life with an individual experience. We see the world through different eyes. Everybody sees the world a different way. The problem is we have a tendency to see, we'll take Kanye West, for example. He's very different. He's very outspoken. He does his thing. People gravitate towards it because he's just original. Well, the person gravitating is original too. Why aren't they out there being original? Why are they trying to be like him? Why are they buying the clothes to look like him? Why are they hanging on his every word? Why are they, why are they think that he is important, but they're not important? I think that that's where we are right now with the media and social media. The influencers basically get these people to want to be like them rather than having a whole bunch of individuals. So now to be like him, you have to see the world through his eyes, which means you have to take on his opinions, what he likes, what he dislikes, what he likes to wear. You basically have to become a wannabe fake version of that person, right? To keep up with what's going on. Whereas opposed to if you're just your own person, he says something, you're like, okay, that's interesting, whatever. And you keep on moving. So I think there's a lot of people that they're not true to themselves. They're not. They're basically being pulled towards whatever that mainstream media narrative is so that they can control it. Because if you're so into Kanye and everything he's doing, oh, there's a new pair of sneakers, you buy them. Oh, there's a new t-shirt, you buy them. So if you want to be like him enough, they can sell you almost anything. And now they just have you consuming all kinds of stuff nonstop, stuff that you can't even afford. You're putting it on credit cards. You go in debt because you want to be like him with the new sneakers. So I think there's a lot that hopefully people are going to see in the future, what's going on, how they're being manipulated, and how they themselves are just as original and just as important as Kanye or Kim or anybody else, but they don't view it that way. And if you don't view it that way, you don't see it that way, you don't believe it that way, you'll never become it. So I think that people need to start looking within themselves. And I think that was a good part about lockdown was everybody was stuck in their own house by themselves or with their, husbands, wives, girlfriends, whatever. And you had to really look inside yourself a lot more. And people didn't like what they saw. It was ugly. And I think that was a big thing that happened in 2020. People really saw what they had become or who they had become. And a lot of people didn't like it. So they started drinking all the time. Many people were drunk, nonstop, doing drugs, like, things that if you're in your house and you're not working and you're not stressed out about work and having your boss yell at you, if you're just hanging out in your house, why do you need to be drunk off your ass all day, every day? Like, what's the point? Can't you just spend time with your wife, your dog, go for a walk, watch a movie, something like that? So I think a lot of people right now are lost. I think there are many people trying to find themselves right now. And I just hope and pray that they do, because everybody's just as important as Kanye. Everybody's just as original as Kanye. They just need to release that to the world. And I think that this whole world would be a much better place if they did it.
Yeah, it'd be a whole lot better. Yeah. Um, as you said, and in Slovakia, it was like big problem. Like people where a lot of people fall into drinking and they're like alcoholics right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. And people wind up using food, like eating and getting, overweight, which is unhealthy. And the drug thing, which is crazy because, everything was shut down. People still getting drugs. So, I mean, drug dealers don't have a business, so they're not shutting down. So, they wind up getting, really messed up with drugs. Some people suicide, depression. Like, I think all these things were really because they were forced to take a good look at themselves and they didn't like what they see. It wasn't about the fact that they couldn't go to the gym or work or whatever it is. It was for the first time probably in their whole lives. They had to just be themselves by themselves without anybody and anything around them. And they didn't like what they had created. What I think they don't realize is they can create something else if they want to. They don't have to be that way. They can pull themselves out of whatever it is and create a whole new life, but it's up to them to do the work. And now they don't want to do the work. Everybody wants everything handed. They think Kanye West had everything handed to him. If they know his backstory, where he came from in Chicago, how poor he was, all the stuff that he went through, to get to where he is now, they might even be like, oh man, it's not even worth it. Look at everything he had to go through, but look where he's at. You want to be where he's at without going through it. And that again is something I think they see inside themselves. They see where they want to be, but also realize they're not willing to take the steps to get there. So they realize they're never going to get there. And they hate that about themselves, that they're, nobody wants to be lazy. Nobody wants to be weak, but they're lazy and weak. And they want everything handed to them. When they realize that's what people, what they themselves are doing. And then, they could be Kanye, but they don't have it in them to do it. That any of us could be Kanye, but they just don't have it in them to push themselves. Now they look down on themselves, and now it's at that point, I think that, people, I don't even know if you need to go see a therapist. I'm not really sure how you get out of that, but I think that eventually people start to snap out of it. It takes a while, it takes a long time of looking deep inside yourself and understanding yourself and starting to love yourself again and, be secure in yourself and who you are and not look at these false idols. And then I think things will change and get better. But for right now, I think people just holding on to these celebrities, trying to be like them. And it's not a good thing right now.
Yeah, it's really not. And when you mentioned drugs, how was the addiction on heroin? Was it like so hard as they tell? And
Oh
how
yeah.
was the treatment?
Oh yeah, it was so for me, I always say, like, if somebody says, well, Jerry, how are you going to do that? That's hard. I said, I already beat heroin. Like nothing is harder than heroin. I mean, that's my experience in my life. Nothing has been harder than beating heroin. It's so addictive. It becomes so much a part of you that eventually you don't even want to do it anymore, but you're so sick from it that you can't stop. And my thing was I just didn't want to be sick. So I tried to detox many times. I failed, I did everything I could. And finally I get to the point where I had no money left. My wife at the time was addicted to it too. We were just in a spot. And I said, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. So I walked into the outpatient rehab and, went through that process. And it's interesting because my counselor, you had to see a counselor once a week to make sure that mentally you were okay. And my counselor was a former priest. He had left the priesthood. His name was Peter Byhauer. He's probably in his 70s. He had gray hair. He's pretty old. So 60s, 70s, maybe 80s. Who knows? And he was very like, I'm glad I got him because he was like very in your face, and he didn't make things like nice. He was like, look, basically, you don't have a good outcome probably. The percentage, the odds are you're not going to make it. I was like, who does? I'm here for my first day in rehab. He's telling me I'm going to fail. Well, for me, that's what you have to tell me to get me motivated. You have to tell me something bad. If you tell me I'm doing good, I don't respond well to that. So I said, okay, fine. All right, we'll see. And I went through the program. I was on methadone. I went on Suboxone. I took myself off the Suboxone. But the day I walked in there, I never took another opiate ever again in my life. So it's been, I think this year's 18 or 19 years I've been sober. I've never had a relapse, anything. That day when I walked in was done. It was over. So it was a decision. And the pain I had to go through to get off was brutal. I mean, it's something that I can't explain, unless somebody's been through it. You can't explain it. You can try, but it just doesn't do it justice. I mean, there is an amount of pain in the entire world to your bones that you're ever going to feel. I mean, I'm assuming maybe, I've never, known anybody that explained cancer this way, but I assume bone cancer might be similar to what you feel going through withdrawals. But it was something that is so painful that that's what keeps me from going back. Like no matter what happens in my life, I'm so scared of feeling those withdrawals again. They were so painful that I'll never touch another opiate. Like I've had, when I tore my rotator cuff, I walked in there and the lady said, the doctor said, you tore your rotator cuff and your bicep tendon. I'm going to give you some painkillers. I said, nope, I don't need them. She's like, she goes, you're really bad off. I said, no, thanks. I said, I'm allergic to them. And she was like, allergic. She's like, oh, I said, allergic. So I had torn my rotator cuff. I tore my pec right off the bone. I walked in the hospital. First thing they want to do is give me painkillers. I said, no, thanks, doc. So I've had major injuries where I ripped body parts off and just went home and not even taking an aspirin, taking nothing. I took an Advil, I think, one time, and it didn't really do anything. So I'm like, there's no point in taking it. If it's going to not do anything, why am I going to take it just to take it? So I've gone through some serious injuries and stuff. If I fell off the house now and broke my back, I won't take a painkiller. So it definitely affects me for the rest of my life. But the fear of going through withdrawals again keeps me from going back. But it also will stop me from using a medication to help myself not be in pain. So there's definitely something that's been burned into my psyche about it, like and very, very deeply, that I can still remember physically the pains that I felt and mentally how I felt and emotionally, that it's so scary that I'll never go back to it again.
Yeah, it's like the opiates and the painkillers have like the most side effects from all the drugs there are. Like I was prescribed painkillers from a little kid because of the arthritis, and I stopped using it like 2 or 3 years ago. I just figured out ways in nutrition and in lifestyle to manipulate the inflammation and the pain. So I'm currently painkiller free, and it was really harsh to get there.
Did you go through all the detox and everything like that?
I didn't use opiate ones, so it wasn't just like that, but I used mostly over-the-counter ones, only sometimes like the harsh ones. But it was even like taking something like Advil or ibuprofen. It's when you take it like daily or every other day, it's really hard to get out of it because the inflammation raises and the pain raises. It's like, yeah, I know how mentally it feels. It probably you can't compare it to heroin in any way, but
well, it's still the same type of principle, because if you're taking something that kills pain, when you stop taking it, your pain receptors are sensitized. Like pain that normally hurts feels even worse for a period of time until your body builds up endorphins again and can manage the pain naturally. So when you're first coming off something, I don't know how different it is, but you're going to be in a lot more. So even if you hit your hand, normally it may not hurt. When you come off painkillers, you hit your hand, it's unbelievably painful. So I mean, there's something to be said how this stuff affects you psychologically, but it's physical too.
Yeah, and what I'm interested in, how would you compare the addiction from like something like steroids to like heroin? Because a lot of people say that the addiction to steroids is basically only from like the benefits that you have, like the vascularity and the look and the that you feel more, that you feel more like a man, and something like heroin is just a feeling from taking it. So how do you compare the addiction?
Definitely steroids are addictive. There's no doubt in my mind. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, I'd have said no. But for me, what it was you get addicted to being big. You know, like if you're taking steroids, you're 270 pounds. You shrink down to 210. People start saying, "Oh, what's the matter? Are you sick? Are you okay? Did you stop working out?" And you're like, "Oh man," you start, I'm gonna be that big guy. So for me, I grew up really small. So when I, finally went on steroids and got really big, people were like, "Wow," it's shocking, and it was a good thing. It was positive. Well, now I became that guy. Like that was my identity. My identity was Jerry, the big bodybuilder. So when I started to slim down, I was no longer Jerry the big bodybuilder. Who are you now? That's where the DMT helps, because you're learning more about yourself and you're letting go of your physical and dealing more with your spiritual and emotional. But yeah, it definitely was. It was hard. It was hard to get off the steroids. It was an up and down battle. And again, I'm still on TRT now. So I've been on testosterone for, I mean, when I got off the other steroids, and in the last 4 weeks, I've gone back on an androlone decanate for my joints because my joints, they just weren't feeling good. And no matter what I did, they weren't feeling better. And the doctors flat out like, look, I know you don't want to go on things. This is not to build muscle, but you're going to feel a lot better. It causes fluid in the joints and you're going to feel a lot better. And after the first week, I already felt better. So there's definitely, a point where they have a physical effect, but that mental effect is what makes them addictive. That's a part that you can't get away from because like if let's say you're at a club and a perfect example. So I went on steroids. I go up to 270 pounds. I grew up with this girl named Christina. She was like my best friend. I love Christina to death. And she came into the bar I was working at. I was a bouncer. She walked right by me, and I didn't see her, but she didn't recognize me at all. I was so big. And I saw her on the dance floor, and when I saw her, I went over and I grabbed her by the waist and I picked her up like this off the ground. And she turned around and saw me and didn't realize it was me and started screaming and kicking, like fighting me. So I put her down and I'm like, it's me. Like, and she took her a second. She's like, oh my God. And then she was like impressed by it. Right. She's like, wow, like touching my arms and stuff. That's great. That's like the best feeling. So now to her, I was no longer that skinny little guy. I was this big, strong guy, right? So now as you're hanging out and girls are coming up to you, they're noticing more, and then guys are giving you more respect. And you go to a bar and people don't want to fight you because you're so big that even if you get into a fight and you can't fight, they're hitting you and you're not going down because you just don't feel it as much. And that becomes who you are. You're that big, tough guy that girls love. And then all of a sudden you lose 10 pounds. People notice it. And they go, hey, well, you trimming down a little bit? Ooh, and it goes in your head a little bit like, oh man. Or God forbid, like a girl says something like, oh, you're losing weight, you look good. You lose your mind because you don't want to be losing weight. You want to be that guy that still gets that attention. So a lot of it is like, the steroids become just as much a part of your identity as the physical size does. And you don't really know where you are anymore and where the physique is and where the drugs are. Like you get lost in it and you lose yourself in it. And I think that's the problem. Like by the time this thing, you have to stop these things. Rich Piano was the same way. Dallas McCarver have been the same way. The amount of drugs that were in his system when he died, nobody should ever put that amount in their body. But that was in his head. He needed to be the big because he was a young gun that was future Mr. Olympia. He needed to be 300 pounds all year, all the time. Rich would say stuff like, "Man, I can't not be the mutant. I have to be that crazy big guy, or else my fans are not going to be around." And the way that I know that's not true is I started trimming down, and another good friend of mine, his name is CT Fletcher. He had another
Yeah.
heart attack, and he had to have a heart transplant. Now, before he could have the heart transplant, he had slimmed down a lot. He really couldn't work out. Like he wasn't doing well. He was on medication, and he goes to this expo, and I think it was San Jose. I think it was San Jose, and because he lives in California, so he couldn't travel. So I hadn't seen him in a few months. And I see him. I said, "Oh man, CT." So I walk up, and everywhere I go, it doesn't matter. When I was in Australia, I stop and see CT. I go see Rich. I go see these guys because you never know when the last time you're going to see him is. You just don't, and that goes with anybody. So people that I know, that I travel with, that I really like, I make sure I stop at their booths and see them so we can interact a little bit because it gets all crazy. So I go to CCT and he brings me up on the thing and he's, Jerry, come here, man. So he grabs me by the look. He goes, look over there. He's like, you see all these motherfuckers? You know, CT has his whole shtick that he does. He goes, look at them. They're lined up around the place to see my old ass, right? And I was like, of course they are. And he said, I don't have a muscle on my body anymore. And it's still standing there. And then it dawned on me, he thought because he lost his physique that nobody would care, right? Because he was in his head. His physique was his identity. Meanwhile, everybody just loved him for the way that he talked, the lessons that he gave out, for being himself. They just loved him for him, just like Rich. Rich shrunk up, they would still love him for him because of what he did in the past and who he is now. And CT got that opportunity to become a new version of himself and realize it wasn't all about him, just how he looked. It wasn't about his bench press record. It wasn't about his curl record. It was about him. They were there for him, you know? And that's the thing is you get wrapped up in what you created because you spent so much time, so much effort, so much money creating this physique and creating this who you are that you forget that you're not that. You can't keep it. In the end, it goes away. Nobody's going to be able to stay on gear and train like that forever. So then what do? Some people disappear and go in a whole nother direction. Other people embrace it and they stay around like and do other things. Like CT's still around, still owns the gym, still doing videos. You know, like he had the heart transplant, took the doctor's advice, and even though he's not as big as he was before, he's still just as loved. You know, so there's definitely a point where you can lose your identity in yourself with the drugs and stuff like that. And at the same time, you're gonna come to that fork in the road where you gotta stop taking them. And when you stop taking them, it's gonna force you to find yourself again. And when that happens, it's a painful process because you wind up going backwards. And with this sport and this lifestyle, you're always trying to go forward. You want to get bigger, more cut, next show. When you start going backwards and you're going to get a little fatter, a little smaller, you know, like you're not competing anymore, you're like, man, what did I spend 30 years doing this for then? I wasted 30 years. And this is where I'm at. And it took me saying, I didn't waste 30 years. Look what I just did. I lived a life that 99% of people want to live. If I could take myself and put them in my shoes and go back and let them go through that life, that's exactly what they want out of their entire life. And I got to live it. I get to have the experiences. I get to create anything that I wanted and present it to the public and have people listen. I got to travel. I got to see new cultures. I mean, there was so much that I did that I couldn't have done if I didn't take steroids. If I never took steroids, you wouldn't even know who I am because I wouldn't have been a bodybuilder. I wouldn't have been competing. I wouldn't have done YouTube. So the steroids definitely facilitated my entire life the way it is. Arnold's the same way. If Arnold never took steroids, none of us know who he is. Let's say he just worked on a farm. None of us would know him. So for me, the steroids definitely were something that created a new life for me, was a tool to create a new life, but also something that I think can destroy lives just as fast as they create them. So I think there should be a context in there. Like, if you're going to use drugs, fine. If you're going to build your physique, fine. If you're going to do what I did, fine. But be aware, if you do lose yourself, don't lose yourself. But if you do lose yourself, be aware you're going to have to find yourself later on. And that is painful to do. But when you realize you're not losing the life anymore that you had, you know what I mean? You're just moving on to the next chapter. And you should feel lucky enough that you had that time because nothing can last forever. That should put a smile on your face and you should be able to move on to the next part of your life and be grateful you had all those experiences and you are who you are now, despite not being able to have the physique and take the drugs.
Do you fully know who you are already?
Well, I mean, it's been, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that since I stopped taking them. So it's a process and you learn new stuff all the time because as a person you evolve. For me, it was spirituality. Like I had to go back and learn spirituality. I mean, I don't know if you can see behind me, I have a bunch of guitars and stuff behind me. I didn't do any of that when I was competing. I was able to reconnect with that. I was able to make music again. I was able to do things that I put on the back burner. So it's like, it's strange because when you go back to find yourself, you really do find that I'm still that 14-year-old kid when I started training. I'm still that guy. I'm also the guy that went to Australia. I'm also the guy that got off the drugs. I'm also the guy that tore his bicep. I'm also the guy that, owns companies, which business isn't necessarily something that bodybuilders do. They don't all start their own businesses. So you wind up realizing, for me at least, that I wasn't just a bodybuilder. A bodybuilder was part of who I was, but it wasn't all that I was. And I was living like bodybuilding was all that I had. And that's not a fact. So I think that in trying to find myself again, it created some balance so that I'm aware of who I am now. But now I'm a much different person because I have a lot of time behind me. I have a lot more wisdom and knowledge I didn't have before. So I'm still a 14-year-old kid that plays music. I'm still a wrestler. I'm still a bodybuilder. And now I'm a businessman. And now I'm an NPC IFBB judge. and I'm a husband, and now, I have my dog. I'm a dog dad, so now all these other things that I couldn't be while I was a bodybuilder because I focused on that one thing. So yeah, I know who I am now. Yes, absolutely. Do I know that I'm evolving every day? Absolutely. Am I going to be somebody different tomorrow? I don't know, but I'm open to it. And I think that's a big part.
What's the next step, or what's the goal you want to achieve in life general and in life spirituality?
Um, Spirituality, I think I'm kind of on the road right now. So I'm aware of, things that are beyond our physical realm, things that are it's hard to place it into terms where people understand it, but I'm aware that there's more than just what's going on right now that we see. I guess you can put it that way. My goal, I basically have one goal at this point in my life is I everybody I think wants to be remembered when they're gone. Like they don't want to be forgotten. I think everybody wants that. However, what I want is, let's just say, we'll take an example of essential amino acids. Essential amino acids, all 9 are needed to build muscle, which include the branched chains, but all 9 are included that you need. Now, a lot of people didn't know that. And if you go back and look, I was the first one anywhere talking about that. My videos were the first ones talking about EAAs going against BCAAs and using them together. And just as an example, 50 years from now, when I'm gone, or maybe 60 years from now, when I'm gone, somebody somewhere is going to say, well, you need all 9 EAAs, not just the BCAAs. And I want that to be from maybe another person that told them and another person that told them, and they heard it from me. And they don't need to know that it came from me. But that information that I put out, that's real information that helps people, is a legacy that's going to go on long after I'm gone. So my goal is the information that I put out does a lot of good, 300, 400, 500 years after I'm dead. I'm hoping that somebody somewhere will be able to say something and nobody knows where it came from. Like there's all these things like, they say, stupid is as stupid does. Well, we know Forrest Gump said that. Well, 500 years from now, somebody may say as stupid is as stupid does, and they don't know it came from a movie, but it just kept getting handed down and it lives on forever. So my legacy is the information that I used for myself to build my life and to give out to the public goes on long after I'm gone. And I'm hoping that, by the time I die, that's happened.
I think that'll probably happen because you have already a huge fan base and a lot of people that really love your content and love you as a person in general. So I think you already achieved that.
That's the goal, man. I read that's my only goal, to make sure that that part of my legacy continues long after I'm gone. Just keep sharing information because that's how we learn. It's how we grow. We share information.
And what's the goal with the company?
Right now, so when I first started the company, it grew so fast that I had to stop it. Like I had to bring it back down. So the goal now is, I have a couple other products that I want to put out, and I think we're going to start moving into some of the other vendors, like different distributors that want to carry the products. But I want to be very specific about who I work with because there's a lot of people out there. I started working with a couple of them, and they want me to send them the product. They want an even more discounted price on it, and then they want me to send them free T-shirts and free shaker bottles, and then free shipping. I'm like, well, then I make no money. So how does that benefit me? So there's a lot of companies out there that they don't understand that all of us need to work together. It's an industry. It's not one person. It's not one company. And they're used to dealing with all these big companies that give them all that stuff because they're selling tons of product. Now, if I go to buy a product, I can buy 200 of one bottle or one product. They're buying 60,000 of one product. So they can afford to do things that we can't. So there are people out there that understand that, companies that understand that, and to start working with those companies to get the products in there. So the access is even faster to people that want them. So if they went into a store, let's say in Indiana, they'd be on the shelves rather than ordering from me, waiting for 3 days. If they need, another multi or whatever, they can run right in there and buy it. So I'm going to start looking at different stores. I'm talking to a few people now, and that's moving in the direction probably next, and international too. So we just started shipping globally this year, last year, but with the pandemic, not a lot of people are ordering stuff like that. They don't want to, pay, $30 for a bottle or whatever, and then pay $30 to have it shipped. Whereas like a couple of years ago, when people had the income, they would do it. So I have had a place over in the UK that I would ship the stuff to, and they would sell it through there. But then even they started having issues and stuff when the pandemic started, so everything kind of slowed down at that point. So trying to get things back into the stores to where people can purchase them, dealing with good people and good companies, and that's the whole goal this year.
You know what I think is like the biggest problem internationally is that I order a lot of supplements from USA, and
Yeah.
a lot of times it's only like a $60 order, which is like nothing, and they stop it at customs and they give you like taxes on it and all the fees for handling it, and
Yeah.
that $60 order is priced like another 30 euros, so like $100. So that's, I think, the biggest problem is that a lot of these European countries hold American products at the customs because
Yeah.
they
It's
think
happened
that
a
they
lot.
are illegal and stuff.
Well, they did that with T-shirts. I sent T-shirts to an individual in Canada that he bought, and they held them. They charged him like 65 Canadian dollars, something like that, which is more than the T-shirts even cost. And they held them. They said, "You can get them when you pay it." And I was like, "They're T-shirts." You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing like there's no taxes or anything like that. And we looked it up. And there wasn't really anything saying that they should have been taxed, but that's the way they did it. And I've sent T-shirts to other people in Canada, and they went through just fine. It seemed almost like they just picked that day, just decided to do it. So, there's nothing you can do at that point. If he doesn't pick them up, I think they just destroy them or dispose of them. So he wound up paying it, and he said, "I'll wear the shirts," and I'm super excited. He's like, "Man, they really killed me on this tax or whatever it was." And I was like, "Man, there's nothing we can do about it right now." Which it's better if you have a distributor in those countries, to where you can send a large volume over there, and then they can distribute them over there. It's a little bit different. Um, I guess customs lets things go through if it's like big orders and stuff like that. I guess the little stuff they try to really stop and tax the hell out of it, so people they want to make money on it.
Yeah, I think it's this way. And the last time I was pretty angry because I ordered a B12 vitamin, because in Slovakia you can get a quality B12 like everyone is underdosed, and it's like only a few micrograms, and it's even not a available form. So I ordered from USA, and they wrote like steroids on it,
Oh, jeez.
and I had to go there personally, and I was like there for like 2 hours explaining them that it's not steroids, and it was like oral one, it wasn't injectable and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how it works.
Yeah. And what else are you up to, like in right now in near future?
Right now we're getting ready to start the season here for the NPC again, the IFBB. We just had a wellness seminar. Wellness is a new division here for women. It's a little bit bigger
Wellness
than.
bikini, right?
Well, it's not. They say wellness bikini, but wellness is one division, bikini is the other one. So
Okay.
bikini is one look, and wellness is like a bigger version of bikini with
Yeah.
bigger legs and bigger glutes. So we did a seminar there. We brought Urishna out, and she's like, she's unbelievable. And then we have another seminar in February coming up, and then we have the first show starting in March. So the season is going to get underway very soon, and I'm excited to looking forward to it, because like we had a bunch of shows canceled here last year, and people started getting ready, and they got canceled last minute, and they worked their asses off for 4 months or something in a pandemic, and the shows got canceled. So we're looking at this year. Hopefully, everything's going to go smoothly. We hope.
Yeah, a lot of my friends here were like last week before the competition, and they canceled it last week.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Like three
like
days before.
it's crazy. But NPC is like in America, it's like crazy. There's like so many good athletes.
Yeah.
It's like it's so massive.
We have 5, 6, 7 shows in each state. There's a lot of places to compete at. So different states have different restrictions. So some of them we moved to other states. Like we moved ones in Maryland to Virginia, and ones in Pittsburgh to Orlando. Like we move things like all over the place. But it's looking like this year things may be back. I don't say back to normal, but we'll be able to have those shows. Like when we say they're going to go happen, they're going to happen. So fingers crossed.
And I heard like the Pro League isn't gonna be called IFBB Pro League, and it's gonna be called something like NPC Pro, or
I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about that.
I heard something about that talking
Well, we
here.
have something called NPC Worldwide now. And NPC Worldwide means that now the NPC is not just in America; it's all over the world. But those are amateurs, not pros. So as of right now, as far as I know, the IFBB is not going to change the name, and it something could be coming up, but it's part of Weeder, and Weeder came up with the IFBB. So I don't see them changing the IFBB name, especially when the Olympia is attached to it, and they just sold the Olympia to Jake Woods, and he's getting off the ground again. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. If something does like that happen, I'll definitely put something up, like a post about it on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, sure. A lot of my friends compete in NPC because they want to get IFBB Pro card, not the Elite Pro card. So
Yeah.
a lot of them go to competitions, and right now it's in Philippines and all these countries. Like Czech Republic has NPC competitions. It's like, yeah, as I
Yeah, the
said,
NPC
it's
worldwide, they're
worldwide. And
branching out because it used to be just the NPC was here in America. They had like IFBB amateur, they called it, and then there's some kind of split that happened between the IFBB amateur and in the the elite became that thing and amateur became that, and then they decided to do NPC worldwide and opened it up to the entire world, and they're branching out. I think last year was kind of hard to get out there and do this stuff, but I think they're trying really hard to get it out there and grow it. So as soon as the different countries can open, NPC will be in your country no matter where you're at some point.
yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you, Jerry, a lot for accepting my invite. I love to have you on the podcast. I think it's a great episode. I enjoyed talking to, and I think the listeners will mark it as a good episode. And I hope that everyone will give some feedback and they'll share it to their Instagram stories, so they can tag you. You're on Instagram like Jerry Ward, right?
Just all my Instagrams. If you just look up Jerry Ward, I'm on everything as that name. So
Yeah, and you can also tag me, Mario, and underscore CRKON. So thank you a lot for listening. Thank you once again, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you a lot for having such a big guest as you.
Mario, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, man. I know you had Tony Huge on,
Yeah,
so I'm honored to be on here with Tony Huge and be the. I don't know. Have you had a lot of different competitors and stuff on, or is it a new podcast or?
yeah. Basically from Slovakia and Czech Republic, I have like really the great ones. Even Slavoj Bednár, he was competing with Regan Grimes in
Okay.
December,
Yep.
and a lot of pros that a lot of people don't know about because they're from these small countries like Slovakia and Czech Republic. But there are some bodybuilders that have 270 pounds in like 4% body fat on the
Right.
podcast. So if you
Very
want
cool,
to
man.
check out, maybe YouTube has subtitles and stuff, so you can check them out and support them. And from the international or American guests, yeah, Dr. Tony Huge and Rasto Valent, he's an IFBB Pro physique,
Mhm.
and that's probably the only English speaking ones.
Well, I'm honored to be one of the first few, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'd love to be on anytime, man. Just let me know.
Thank you, Jerry, a lot.
Very well.
Okay,
Take
so
care of
hope
yourself,
you
man.
enjoyed this episode. Bye.